Humanity has waged endless wars for centuries. Already in the first millennium before century, wars between states could last for decades and took the lives of tens of thousands of people. The cause of such conflicts were territorial disputes, some misunderstandings of a religious nature, or simply economic benefits. Now in the 21st century, the number of wars and aggression among countries has significantly subsided, but still there are countries that do not want to give in and are fighting. We will show only countries whose degree of hostility is at the highest level or even at war. Serbia and Albania. Why are these countries in a bad relationship? Let's try to sort this conflict apart. Those interested in politics, history, or even geography already know that Kosovo is the cause of the conflict. Kosovo is an autonomous region within Serbia, which declared its independence in 2008, and so far 117 countries of the world have recognized it. Basically, of course, these are the countries of the West. Mutual hatred between these people is just off the scale. Albanians believe that the Serbs are the occupiers who should be expelled from Kosovo, and the Serbs have a different version. In their opinion, wild Albanians are trying to destroy the original Serbian shrine, Kosovo. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, local wars began in many countries of the former socialist camp. The war in Kosovo was not the largest and bloodiest, but it was here that major Western countries openly intervened in the armed conflict. NATO bombings of Yugoslavia in 1999, for the first time since the collapse of the Soviet Union, provoked strong anti-American sentiments in Russia. Now Serbia is trying to return Kosovo to its own, and the Albanians do not want the loss of their ancestral lands, and therefore the conflict will continue for a long time. This conflict is similar in nature to another conflict among the countries of the former socialist camp, and this is of course Armenia and Azerbaijan. The military conflict that began in the middle of this year between the two countries is still ongoing. Probably you already know a lot about this conflict. I will say briefly that the war is being waged because of Nagorno-Karabakh, which de jure is an internationally recognized territory of Azerbaijan, but is actually under the occupation of Armenia. After gaining independence for 30 years, both sides cannot solve the territorial issue definitively. Armenia does not want to return Artsakh, as it considered as the territory of Armenian people. Turkey provides political and military support to Azerbaijan, but Russia is obliged under the CSTO to protect Armenia's territorial security. During the month of the war, the parties lost more than 5,000 of their soldiers, killed about 200 innocent civilians. The war continues, and in the south of the Azerbaijan, army took full control of the territory of Karabakh. In the 20th century, most colonies were freed. For British India, this moment came after World War II. The empire no longer had the strength to hold under its power a huge territory torn apart by contradictions between Hindus and Muslims. In 1947, after the collapse of British India, two states were formed: India, with the main religion of Hinduism, and Pakistan, where mainly Muslims live, but the territory of Kashmir remained undivided. Now three countries claimed these territories: India, Pakistan and China, which also wanted a piece of Kashmir. 70% of Kashmir's population is Muslim. In the 70 years since independence, India and Pakistan have fought several battles. In 2016 and early 2018, the Indian and Pakistani military regularly shelled each other's positions. India blames the Pakistani authorities for almost all of the attacks that take place in India. Pakistan is a potential ally of China, but India maintains friendly relations with the United States. Neither India nor Pakistan needs war. India ranks 4th in military power. Pakistan is weaker than its neighbor, but both sides are equal in nuclear capability, and in the event of a full-scale conflict, Islamabad can easily use nuclear weapons. The next countries are Iran and the United States. In this group, we can bravely add Israel and Saudi Arabia. which openly hate Iran. Israel and Saudi Arabia, led by the United States, do not want Iranians' dominance in the Middle East. Today's relationship between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the State of Israel can be described in one word: enmity. The Middle East itself is a rather tense region without Iran and Israel. Iran's nuclear program haunts Israel or the entire world community. The United States is establishing another package of sanctions against Iranian companies and banks related to the nuclear program. Iran in the Middle East maintains warm relations with Shiites from Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and sponsors some organizations that oppose Israel. Given the event of the beginning of this year and the assassination of such a significant military figure for Iran, Qasem Soleimani, the armed conflict could potentially escalate into a regional or even world war, which will be drawn into Israel, the Arab countries, Russia, China, Great Britain, and other countries of the world. Ukraine and Russia. In December 2004, during the Orange Revolution, the president of Ukraine became Viktor Yushchenko, who took a course to join NATO, and relations with Russia began to gradually deteriorate. In 2010, Viktor Yushchenko became the new president of Ukraine, who tried to sit on two chairs and made attempts to rapprochement with Russia. At the end of 2013, protests began for residents who wanted rapprochement with the European Union. In March 2014, as a result of the referendum, Crimea and Sevastopol became part of Russian Federation. In response, Ukraine supported the introduction of anti-Russian Western sanctions and actually began a transport and energy blockade of Crimea. The war began in eastern Ukraine. Now both states are in bad relations. It is advantageous for Russia for Ukraine to lead more of a policy loyal to Moscow, as this post-Soviet space and almost all the countries of the former Soviet Union is considered a zone of influence of Russia. Ukraine is Russia's geographical neighbor, and if it is part of NATO, it is already a threat to the national security of Russia itself. Israel and the Arabs. Arab-Israel is the longest of all unresolved conflicts in the world. Its beginning dates back to the 1940s and is connected with the problem of the creation of a Jewish state in Palestine, which the Arab states did not agree with. As a result, the first Arab-Israeli war began in 1948 and ended in favor of Israel in the same year. The Second World War began during the Suez Crisis of 1956. The first Arab country to recognize Israel was Egypt in 1979. The second country was Jordan in 1992. And last year, in 2020, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain became the third and fourth country in Arab world to agree to fully settle diplomatic and economic relations. Most Arab countries still do not recognize the Jewish state in the Middle East out of solidarity with the Palestinians. And today, the Arab-Israeli conflict is one of the most acute international problems. Turkey and Greece. These countries have been at war with each other since the Ottoman period. During the First World War, they were part of different coalitions and waged a full-scale war against each other. After the end of World War began the Greek-Turkish War, which lasted until 1922. Hostile relations remain between the two countries, and the main point of tension is considered to be the island of Cyprus, which claims both Greece and Turkey. In the north of Cyprus, there is even a country called the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, but no country in the world except Turkey itself officially recognized this republic as an independent state. In 2020, a military conflict almost began over new gas fields that were found in the eastern Mediterranean. Ankara has sent a research vessel to the shores of the Greek islands of Castellorizo to explore gas fields. In turn, the Greek authorities said that they are not ready to tolerate the actions of Turkey, as the exploration of the deposits belong to the exclusive economic zone of Greece. France provides political and military support to Greece. Let me remind you that both Turkey and Greece are members of the NATO military bloc. They are now one step away from the conflict, and the armed force of both countries are on high alert. In addition to all of the above, there are still countries that dislike each other. This is Russia and Georgia after the recognition of Abkhazia and South Ossetia by Russia. Armenia and Turkey after the well-known genocide at the beginning of the last century. Ireland and the Great Britain after the British Empire occupied Northern Ireland in the last century, and Ireland still claims these territories. China and the United States are two superpowers that are taking tough economic and political measures to prevent the other from developing, and of course the problem of recognition of Taiwan by the United States. We have some territorial disputes as well between Ethiopia and Somalia, Peru and Ecuador, Argentina and the United Kingdom. That is all for today guys. Thank you for watching till the end and goodbye.